Most people believe power comes from status, money, connections, or luck. They think powerful people are simply born into the right situation, the right family, the right opportunities, the right moment in history. But Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that most people still refuse to accept. Power is rarely about what you have. It is about what you are willing to do. Throughout history, the people who quietly rose above everyone else were not always the smartest, the strongest, or even the most talented. What made them different was that they understood human nature better than the rest. They saw the world clearly, without illusions. While others held on to comfortable ideas about fairness, morality, and how things should work, these individuals studied how things actually work. And once you understand that, the whole game begins to change. Because society runs on a set of invisible rules. Rules that are rarely taught openly, but are always enforced. Rules that reward those who understand them and quietly punish those who don't. Most people never learn these rules, not because they are completely hidden, but because they are uncomfortable to accept. They force you to face a truth that many people would rather ignore. The world does not reward goodness, it rewards effectiveness. Machiavelli wrote about this more than 500 years ago, and the reason his ideas still make people uncomfortable today is simple. They reveal something we all sense deep down but rarely admit. Power does not belong to the kindest person in the room. It belongs to the person who understands the room. And once you realize this, you begin to notice something interesting. The people who rise the fastest often follow habits that seem ruthless, cold, or even unfair. But those habits continue to work again and again across centuries, across cultures, and across every system of power humanity has ever created. And once you recognize them, you begin seeing them everywhere. Before we continue, if you're finding truth in this so far, I'd appreciate a like. And if you want to hear more insights like this, make sure you're subscribed. Now let's continue. The first habit is the ability to control perception. Most people focus on reality. Powerful people focus on how reality appears. This single difference explains why some individuals dominate environments where others struggle endlessly. Because human beings rarely react to pure truth. They react to perception. If people see you as confident, they treat you differently. If they see you as important, they listen more carefully. If they see you as dangerous, they hesitate before challenging you. And if they see you as weak, they will test you again and again. Machiavelli understood that reputation often matters more than ability itself. In many cases, reputation eventually becomes ability. When people believe you are powerful, doors open, opportunities appear, competitors hesitate, and strangely, that belief itself begins to create the reality. This is why those who rise quickly understand something most people ignore. You are always performing. Not in a fake way, but in a strategic one. Every interaction quietly sends signals about your status. The way you speak, the way you pause, the way you react under pressure, the way you handle silence. People are constantly observing these signals, even when they think they are not. The problem is that most individuals communicate weakness without realizing it. They over-explain themselves. They rush to defend their decisions. They look for approval before taking action. And every time they do this, they slowly lower how others perceive their status. The ruthless habit is different. You learn to shape perception intentionally. You speak less, but with more certainty. And you avoid unnecessary explanations. You allow silence to do part of the work. Because silence has a strange effect on people. When someone is comfortable with silence, others assume confidence. And confidence, whether real or simply perceived, attracts power like gravity. But perception alone is not enough. The second habit is emotional detachment. One of the biggest weaknesses in human decision-making is emotional impulse. People react quickly. They get offended. They rush to defend their pride. They escalate conflicts simply because their ego demands it. But Niccolò Machiavelli observed something important among successful rulers and skilled strategists. They rarely allowed emotions to control their decisions. They treated situations like a game of chess, not personal battles. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Imagine two people facing the same insult. One reacts instantly, driven by pride. They argue, they retaliate, they create enemies, and they increase the tension. The other person simply observes. They notice who said it, why it was said, who was watching, and most importantly, what response would benefit them the most. Sometimes the strongest move is retaliation. Sometimes it is silence. And sometimes it is delayed revenge months later when the opponent is vulnerable. But the decision is never emotional. It is strategic. This level of emotional control creates a powerful advantage because emotional people are predictable. You can trigger them. You can manipulate them. You can make them reveal their intentions. But a person who does not react emotionally becomes extremely difficult to control. Others cannot easily provoke them. They cannot bait them into mistakes. And eventually people begin to treat them differently, more carefully, more cautiously, almost as if they are dealing. The same weaknesses that existed in Niccolò Machiavelli's time still dominate modern society. Ambition, jealousy, greed, insecurity, and the desire for recognition. These forces shape decisions in politics, business, friendships, and even families. Those who understand this quietly gain leverage in almost every environment they enter. But there is another habit that separates people who simply understand power from those who actually build it. A habit that feels strange and counterintuitive to most people: the willingness to appear less powerful than you actually are. At first, this idea sounds confusing. Why would someone intentionally hide their strength? The answer is simple. Visibility attracts resistance. When someone appears obviously dominant, others naturally start forming alliances against them. They feel threatened. They become defensive. They begin searching for ways to limit that person's influence. But someone who appears modest, underestimated, or harmless moves through the same environment very differently. They face less resistance. People reveal more information around them. Competitors underestimate them, and opportunities appear without immediate challenge. Machiavelli repeatedly warned rulers about the danger of appearing too powerful too early. Power, when displayed carelessly, creates enemies faster than it creates security. But hidden strength grows quietly, and by the time others finally recognize it, the structure supporting that power is already too strong to easily break. Think about how often history rewards those who move forward quietly. They build alliances slowly. They earn trust gradually. They accumulate influence piece by piece. Then one day, it suddenly appears as if they control the entire board. To outsiders, it looks sudden, but in reality, it is the result of years of silent positioning. The ruthless habit here is restraint. You resist the urge to constantly prove your intelligence. You resist the urge to dominate every conversation. You resist the urge to reveal every capability you possess, because revealing everything gives others time to prepare against you. Mystery, on the other hand, creates uncertainty, and uncertainty gives you space to move. But perhaps the most uncomfortable truth Machiavelli exposed is this: people do not always reward honesty. They reward outcomes, which leads to another habit that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck: the ability to control when truth is revealed. Most people grow up believing that honesty must always be immediate and absolute. But Machiavelli observed that successful leaders often understood something far more complex. Truth, like power, is a tool, and tools are used strategically. This does not mean constant deception, because that would eventually destroy trust. But it does mean understanding that information itself is leverage. Revealing too much information too early weakens your position. Revealing the right information at the right moment strengthens it. Negotiators understand this. Strategists understand this. Leaders throughout history understood this as well. Information shapes perception. Perception shapes decisions, and decisions shape power. Those who master this habit learn when to speak, when to remain silent, and when to allow others to reveal more than they intended. And once you begin seeing the world through this lens, something interesting begins to happen. You realize that the game most people think they are playing is not the real game at all. Because beneath every conversation, every negotiation, and every rivalry, there is a deeper layer of strategy quietly unfolding between those who understand these habits and those who do not. And the difference between these two groups often decides who eventually controls the outcome of the entire situation. The moment you begin to recognize these patterns, something slightly unsettling becomes clear. Most people are not competing on the same level of awareness. They believe the game is about effort, talent, or even fairness. They work harder. They try to be liked. They try to be seen as good, trustworthy, and cooperative. And none of those things are necessarily wrong, but they are not the forces that shape power. The individuals who rise above the rest usually operate with a deeper understanding of the mechanics behind human behavior. They know that influence does not come from simply being correct. It comes from controlling the environment in which decisions are made. This leads to another ruthless habit that quietly separates those who gain influence from those who remain powerless. They control scarcity. Scarcity is one of the most powerful psychological forces that exists. Humans naturally value what appears limited. Attention that is rare becomes attractive. Access that is restricted becomes desirable. Time that is difficult to obtain becomes respected. But most people unknowingly destroy their own perceived value by making themselves constantly available. They reply to everything immediately. They overextend their time. They try to please everyone. And while many people believe this behavior creates goodwill, it often leads to the opposite result. When someone is always available, their presence slowly loses value. Their time appears unlimited, and things that seem unlimited are rarely appreciated. Those who understand power behave very differently. They protect their time carefully. They are selective about where they give their attention. They do not rush to answer every request, every message, or every opportunity. This is not because they are arrogant, but because they understand an important truth about human psychology. People naturally chase what feels rare. When access to you requires effort, people subconsciously place a higher value on you. They begin to assume that your time must be important. This small shift in perception can completely change the way people treat you. The same words spoken by someone who seems rare carry far more authority than the same words spoken by someone who is always available. Scarcity creates a kind of gravity, and gravity attracts influence. But scarcity alone is not enough. Another ruthless habit that Machiavelli emphasized is something even more dangerous: the ability to divide opposition. Whenever individuals unite against a common enemy, their collective strength increases dramatically. This is why alliances have shaped the outcomes of wars, political struggles, and even entire civilizations. But the opposite is also true. If opposition becomes divided, distracted, or weakened, even a strong group can become vulnerable. Machiavelli advised rulers to make sure that potential enemies rarely unite. Instead, their focus should remain scattered. Their interests should clash with each other. Their loyalties should stay uncertain. The logic behind this strategy appears again and again throughout history. Empires maintained control by encouraging rivalries among the groups they ruled. Leaders protected their authority by preventing their subordinates from building strong alliances. Even in modern environments like business or politics, the same strategy quietly appears. When competitors are busy fighting each other, they have less time and energy to challenge you. And when rival groups distrust one another, they struggle to organize or cooperate against you. This does not always require manipulation. Sometimes it simply requires awareness. You notice where tensions already exist, where interests clash, and where egos collide. Instead of trying to solve every conflict around you, you allow certain rivalries to continue. Because while others are busy fighting sideways, you continue moving forward. Most people fail to recognize this pattern because they believe conflict must always be removed. But when conflict is understood properly, it can become a shield. It redirects attention, it weakens alliances, and it prevents people from forming a united resistance. Those who master this habit rarely appear at the center of the conflict. Instead, they quietly place themselves above it, observing, waiting, and allowing others to wear themselves out. But there is another habit that feels even more uncomfortable because it challenges a belief that many people grow up with. The belief that being liked guarantees influence. In reality, respect often matters far more than affection. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. This statement has been debated for centuries, yet its deeper meaning is often misunderstood. The point was never about cruelty, it was about reliability. Affection is unstable. People like you when circumstances benefit them. They like you when your decisions match their interests. They like you when you make their lives easier. But the moment you must make a decision that harms their interests, that affection can disappear quickly. Respect behaves very differently. Respect grows from perceived strength, consistency, competence, and clear boundaries. When people respect you, they may not always agree with you. They may not even always like you, but they hesitate before challenging you. They think carefully before crossing you. They understand that your decisions have consequences. This creates stability. The ruthless habit here is maintaining boundaries that people learn not to test. Many individuals struggle with this because they fear being disliked. They avoid confrontation. They allow small acts of disrespect to pass without correction. But small violations slowly accumulate, and over time, they completely reshape how people treat you. Individuals who maintain power rarely allow this erosion to begin. They correct disrespect early, calmly, firmly, without emotional outbursts, but without hesitation either. Over time, this builds a reputation. People begin to understand where the boundaries are, and once those boundaries are clear, many unnecessary conflicts disappear. But perhaps the most overlooked habit of powerful individuals is their relationship with reputation. Reputation is not simply what people say about you. It is the story that spreads about you when you are not present. And that story influences how others treat you even before you enter the room. Machiavelli emphasized that reputation can become a ruler's greatest defense. A strong reputation discourages challenges before they even begin. Think about how people behave when they believe someone is formidable. They hesitate before attacking. They reconsider risks. They calculate possible consequences. But if someone's reputation suggests weakness, indecision, or inconsistency, the opposite happens. They become an easy target. Challenges increase. Respect begins to fade. Reputation works like invisible armor, yet most people treat it carelessly. They contradict themselves. They behave unpredictably. They allow rumors or misunderstandings to spread without responding. Over time, this creates a broken and unclear image that slowly weakens their influence. Those who understand power treat reputation like a strategic asset. They protect it. They shape it. They strengthen it through consistent behavior. Not through loud claims, but through repeated actions that people begin to recognize. When someone becomes known for decisive action, people start expecting it. When someone becomes known for strategic thinking, others begin to anticipate it. And when someone becomes known for responding strongly to betrayal, people think twice before betraying them. Once reputation is established, it begins to work for you. It influences decisions before you even speak. But perhaps the most subtle habit of all is something very few people ever notice: the ability to let others believe that ideas came from them. Human beings have a strong attachment to ownership. When someone believes an idea came from their own mind, they defend it more strongly. They invest more effort into it. They promote it with greater confidence. But when the same idea is forced upon them, resistance appears, even if the idea is logical and even if it benefits them. This is why people skilled in influence rarely push ideas directly. Instead, they guide conversations. They ask questions. They introduce small suggestions that slowly lead others toward the conclusion. And when the other person finally reaches the idea, they feel ownership. They feel proud of the realization. They commit to it fully. Meanwhile, the person guiding the conversation has already achieved the result they wanted without creating resistance. This method requires patience and subtlety. It is slower than giving direct orders, but it produces stronger results because people defend ideas more fiercely when they believe those ideas belong to them. And this leads to one of the most dangerous truths that Machiavelli recognized about human nature. People often care more about appearance than reality. A ruler could be cruel yet admired if that cruelty appears justified. A ruler could be incompetent yet respected if competence appears convincing. Human judgment is not purely logical. It is shaped by stories, narratives, symbols, and public displays. This is why ceremonies, speeches, and symbolic actions have shaped politics for centuries. They create perception, and perception eventually becomes belief. Those who understand this habit learn to communicate through symbols as much as through direct action. They realize that small public gestures can send powerful messages. They understand that visible acts of strength can reshape reputation instantly. And they recognize that silence at the right moment can sometimes carry more weight than 1,000 words. The ruthless advantage here is awareness. While others believe the world runs only on logic, you begin to see the emotional theater that surrounds every decision. And once you see it, you begin to understand why some individuals rise unexpectedly, while others, equally capable, remain unnoticed. Because power rarely rewards the most deserving. It rewards the most strategically aware. And once someone truly begins to see these dynamics clearly, they realize something that changes the way they move through every environment. The people who appear dominant are not always the ones controlling the outcome. Sometimes the real power belongs to the quiet observer standing just outside the spotlight, the one studying the room, the one noticing every insecurity, every rivalry, every hidden ambition beneath polite conversation. Because when you understand those forces, you are no longer reacting to the game. You are positioning yourself to shape it.